Thank you. Well, up next, the rise of ISIS and the spread of Christian persecution, some say was the worst in centuries. One of the biggest stories this year has been the rise of Christian persecution. Some say ethnic cleansing of Christians from the Middle East. Here's CBN News correspondent George Thomas.
From the Middle East to sub-Saharan Africa, Christians are enduring attacks for their faith like never before.
The persecution of Christians is real, it is horrifically violent often, and it is spreading at an unprecedented rate in modern times.
Dr. David Curry is president of Open Doors, a group that monitors religious freedom worldwide. He says Christians faced the most persecution in 2014 than in any other year in recent history.
We have seen the sharpest jump in violent attacks against Christians in the modern era.
Open Doors reports that 4,344 Christians were killed for their faith in 2014, double the number in 2013.
These aren't Christians who are collateral damage in a larger war. These are people who are targeted because they choose to worship Jesus, because they want to read a Bible, and that's shocking.
On Wednesday, the group released its annual World Watch list, ranking the top 50 countries where Christians face the most persecution. North Korea topped the list once again for the 13th year in a row, with some 70,000 Christians reportedly languishing in prison camps.
The government has a paranoia about any ideology which they see as a threat to their cult worship of their leaders. And so they rank enemies of the state. Christians are the number one enemy of the state in North Korea.
Rounding the top 10 worst violators are Somalia, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Sudan, Iran, Pakistan, Eritrea, and Nigeria. But in a majority of the countries, Curry says elements of one religion above all poses the greatest threat to Christians.
Islamic extremism is a driving force, is really the driving force in 40 of the top 50 countries on the World Watch list.
The majority of the deaths last year happened in Nigeria, where kidnappings and murders by the Islamic group Boko Haram killed 2,484 Christians.
Nigeria needs prayers. Nigeria needs prayers.
Damaris Atson has experienced Boko Haram's wrath firsthand. In 2010, her husband was stabbed to death by the Islamic fighters. She said it has taken the grace of God to forgive her husband's killers.
If I do not forgive, the Lord will not forgive me. So I have to forgive, because Jesus teaches us to forgive one another.
Meanwhile, the terrorist group known as Islamic State, or ISIS, continues to drive hundreds of thousands of Christians from Syria and Iraq. Curry worries their success at targeting minority faiths is giving impetus to other radical groups to pursue similar tactics around the world.
So you have the Islamic State, their tactics, their methodology now being adopted by Boko Haram, by Al-Shabaab, and others. And so I think this means that while this year was the worst ever, things look very troubling for years to come.
Open Doors says the World Watch list is a wake-up call to the tragic suffering of Christians around the world.
We need to make the persecuted church an issue of prayer and a support because there's a genocide happening.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, joining us to talk more about this is CBN News correspondent Gary Lane. Gary, the biggest culprit of this persecution this past year was ISIS. You just visited many of those Christians who lost their homes because of ISIS. What did you see and hear?
Well, Chris, you were there as well in June and again in August, as I was. And, you know, this is probably the worst crisis I have seen in 30 years of reporting in the Middle East. Looking at persecution, looking at refugees. I've never seen these mass numbers of persecuted, not just Christians, but also ethnics like Yazidis and Muslims. It is horrible, and it has gotten better for them as far as their housing, their food and blanket needs, things like that. But there are still other needs, like education for the children. But what the people were telling me, and I'm sure they told you this, Chris, is that the Muslims, when they came in, ISIS, when they came into Mosul and the surrounding Christian villages, and also the Yazidis, when they came into the Yazidi areas, they were not alone. There were Arab Muslim neighbors that these people lived with for years that they had good relations with that suddenly turned on them and joined ISIS and forced them out. Yeah. They had the choice to either stay and live under Sharia law and pay a jizya tax, or leave or die, or convert to Islam. What kind of choice is that? But they're in dire straits still.
Yeah, that's those are the same exact stories that I heard, Gary, that their neighbors turned on them just within a few hours or a few days. What do you think we can expect for the coming year?
Well, I think things have gotten better for them in Iraq as the Peshmerga, that is the Kurdish military, has joined with the U.S. in countering ISIS. They pushed ISIS out of Sinjar not too long ago. Many of these Christian villages are free of ISIS now, but the Christians cannot go back because many of their homes have been booby-trapped, and ISIS is still within artillery range. So they're going to have to remain in Erbil and other cities in tents and in prefabricated one-room houses and that type of thing. I don't think ISIS will be as much of a threat in Iraq in the coming year as they will be in Syria. Syria is going to continue. We met with people who fled from Kobani. They are in dire straits and in desperate need of help. ISIS will continue to be on the move there. As far as Iraq, it's going to depend on what happens with the government there in Baghdad and if they will go up against ISIS in Mosul. The Peshmerga say they're ready to join Baghdad in liberating Mosul, but they're not going to do it alone.
Right. Well, Gary, how can we help and pray for these Christians and these other Yazidis that have been just tormented and had their lives just mainly destroyed by ISIS?
Chris, I think we should pray that God visits them and brings them Christian brothers and sisters that will stand along with them and help them. The kids desperately need education, so they need schools to be established in these areas where they are temporary residents. Also that they will be able to return to their homes. But there are many people that have fled and they're going to the West. We need to pray that Christians remain in Iraq to be salt and light. One pastor that you and I both know said, if all the Christians leave, who will represent Jesus here? Who will be salt and light in Iraq? So pray not only for their provision, but pray that they will stay.
Yeah, great points, Gary. And thanks for all your reporting throughout the years, not only what's happening with Christians now in Syria and Iraq, but actually throughout the world.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, up next, what can we do to pray for the coming year? Here in Jerusalem, snow fell this week and Israel experienced a major winter storm. For some, the snow is a reminder of the scripture from the book of Job. It says in Job 38:22 and 23, "Have you entered the treasury of snow, or have you seen the treasury of hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war?" It does seem like a time for battle and war this year, but it's also a time for prayer. He also holds the future. And the snow is a great reminder to pray for this coming year. Please join us in prayer for His will to be done this coming year here in the Middle East and around the world. Thanks for joining us in this edition of Jerusalem Dateline, and thanks to our CBN News team for their analysis for the coming year. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline, and Happy New Year.
This is an appeal to help our brothers and sisters who are desperate for God's Word. Mai Ling longs for a Bible, but she's too poor to buy one. This is the story right across China, where 7,000 people give their lives to Christ every week. Many have no hope of ever affording a Bible of their own. Yet with just £4 a month, you can provide someone young or old with their very first Bible. Through Bible a Month, you can give the Bible to people desperate for God's Word all over the world. People who are hungry to read and understand the good news. Please call 0800 0833 032. That's 0800 0833 032. Or search Bible a Month online. And you could start changing lives with every Bible you put into someone's hands. Thank you.
If you saw this,
Oi! What do you think you're doing?
you wouldn't turn a blind eye. And if you saw this, you'd make sure Sam got help. And you wouldn't ignore this. But the chances are you won't see child abuse. And today, thousands of our children are at risk. Will you call 0800 923 4834 and give £2 a month to help the NSPCC reach an abused child? Today, only 1 child in 9 is getting the help they urgently need. Right now, somewhere in the UK, a child needs you. Your £2 will help us find them and take immediate steps to protect them. So call 0800 923 4834 now and help us reach a child like Alice in time.